Hi, Owen. How are things?
How's it going? How are you?
Very good. Good to see you. So you're back at base in idyllic rural southern County Kilkenny. It's, I'm guessing, gloomy. You are
It's a little grey, all right. Yeah.
a little grey. You've escaped the sunshine of Portugal. So I guess just to back up, a couple of weeks ago, I asked you to get on a plane, get down to Lagos, get down to the Algarve, report back on what we're seeing in terms of our opportunity there. And our opportunity there has been to buy best in class condos that rent like crazy in one of the most livable beach cities on earth, in my opinion. And you said, well, let's back up a minute. I'd like to take the scenic route to Lagos. You said, I'm considering and interested in replicating my little rural finca in the Portugal countryside. I want to I want to take the circuitous route. I want to land in Lisbon. I want to head towards Spain and navigate back to Évora and then meander my way to Lagos. And so we set up this WhatsApp group with the rest of the team, and you were just pinging like crazy, 22 grand house, 200 grand mansion, olive groves, you name it. You found some of the most livable bargain properties we've seen anywhere. A true discovery, because not only do some of these properties open up the possibility of extreme low cost living in an absolutely wonderful place. One of the big things we've been trying to scratch at is, can these properties be turned into a moneymaker? Even could you just buy one thing that sets you up for life? And then I guess you wound up in Lagos, which is cosmopolitan. It's got glitzy yachts. It's got great restaurants in the old town. It's almost like worlds apart, but it's also very interesting because some of that tourism, some of that glitzy tourism, it's already arrived in Évora, as you reported. Is it going to stretch out into the rural hinterlands of Lisbon? And what does this all mean for us? And so tell us what you found.
Yeah, it was interesting going flew into Lisbon, and it's about 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2.5 hours drive across the country to this mountain range in the upper Alentejo region. So the Alentejo is I think it's the biggest region in Portugal. It takes up about a third of the country, but it's the least densely populated part of Portugal. So it's very quiet, very tranquil. You can drive, you have the roads to yourselves a lot of the time. It's kind of, sometimes it's a little eerie almost. You're driving, you just see all the oak plantations, rolling out. But this corner of it is actually is quite mountainous, and so I drove straight up there because I knew there was a couple of hill towns up there where I had passed through very briefly before, and it was just blown away by them. I didn't expect to find that in Portugal. So I wanted to go back and have a deeper dig on the real estate, and think about kind of what the options might be there. But it was interesting to go from that rural, tranquil, really romantic hill town retreat down to Lagos. It's a kind of a mix of emotions, because I was looking at the condos that Rita members have bought in Lagos then, and I was hearing about the gains that people are sitting on down there, and 22 grand village house. You can, I saw some of those village houses I could really get excited about and fall in love with. But there's work, there's stuff to figure out about them, and there's work to put into them. But it could work out. But then you go to Lagos and you see it's a completely different type of real estate investment. But it's a very desirable place, Lagos. It's got a lot going on. It's walkable. So it was just an interesting kind of journey, I guess. I had done it in reverse before. I had gone from Lagos to the hill towns. So
yeah. Exactly. I mean, if you like those hilltown homes, you could literally buy two or three of them a year from the rental income from just one of those luxury Lagos properties. Well, you were oozing with FOMO when you went down to Lagos. You wanted a time capsule and to go back 2 or 3 years to when you were last there,
I
and
think when I went there first I can't remember when it was a few years ago. I was sitting in the you'd arranged for me to meet one of the developers, and I was sitting in his office, and I think the price list had start point of 235,000 euro on it. I mean, there's time they're telling me like that just wouldn't buy you anything in Lagos, nothing of that quality anyway that these developers have put out. They're talking about 400,000 just to kind of get in, just to start. And the building I was in, so I was in Adega where Reader members had bought, and I met readers who had bought there, and I hung out with them. Everything is sold out, and I was talking to the sales guy, and he was saying if he was to list something tomorrow, something that would have sold for 400,000 a couple of years ago, he'd be listing it for 650,000 today. So I definitely have FOMO.
Yeah, well, on my last visit, which is just 2 months ago, and I mean, I wanted you back down there because things are moving so fast down there. I don't ever want a quarter when one of us isn't there. But I rented an apartment in the Porto de Mas area overlooking the water. I called my contact. I said, I love this condo. How much would it cost to buy one? And so he said, well, there's none on the market, but I sold a lot in there, so I'm going to ring around to my clients. So he got through to 5 people. 4 were a hard no without a conversation about selling. The 5th lady said, I don't think so, but if you have a listing, I want to buy another one. And that's because the rental market there is so strong. There is just no reason to ever sell. The rental market is so strong, and also finance is so readily available. So if you want to release some equity from a property, folks are just easier and more tax efficient just to remortgage the property. But all that said, the window of opportunity in Lagos hasn't yet closed. We still have this small number of kind of primo condo locations where there is still some availability. And 2-3 years ago is that Porto de Mas area where the big opportunity is. Now it's in these 3 little pockets within walking distance of the downtown area, where you can still buy a condo, borrow up to 80% at sub 1% rates, and buying here, even at these kind of higher price points, you can cash flow positive from the get-go. But switching gears, and let's take a full 180 back up to the Alentejo, where you were finding $22,000 homes, parallel universe stuff.
Yeah. A couple of things that surprised me. You roll into a town and you're just trying to figure things out, and you're talking to people. So in Castel David, which is a very livable town. It's got a little bakery, butchers, restaurants. It's a hill town. It's got red terracotta roofs, whitewashed buildings. The town council and the locals keep it very clean. You've got a lot of flowers, a lot of public spaces and parks. It's just this really, really relaxed, kind of easygoing, well-run sort of place. And I based myself there for 4 or 5 days, because I really just wanted to see it at every time of day, and kind of just get the pulse of the place. And I was more and more impressed the longer I was there. I ate in every restaurant in town to try them out,
I saw
But
your
everywhere
expense report this morning. I
yeah,
noted that when you sent me your expenses
that's
this
such an
morning.
important part of the scouting. You have to know
Yeah.
you have to try all the restaurants. But the everywhere I went in town, you would see like restored homes, and then next to it, you'd see a home that was kind of ripe for renovation. So I did see one turnkey home, one renovated home, which came partially furnished, and that was at 78,000 euro, and it was inside the castle walls, the citadel walls, and so that's about, I think, $90,000, and they're it was nice. It was very nice. But the thing that struck me the most about it, and in the Airbnb I stayed in, was how dark these village homes can be. So I came to the conclusion fairly quickly, and I think I sent you a message, and you and I kicked it around a bit, that the thing to look for would be something with some outdoor space, particularly if you've an interest in, which I would, in potentially making an income from it. So I wouldn't necessarily be looking at it as a pure investment or trying to make a profit, but you want something that you could rent. You'd have an option to rent, make a few quid from. So I kind of narrowed it down, and I talked to some brokers to look in the town for homes with terraces or garden spaces. So that's what I'd gone to look for. And so I saw one house for 40,000 euro. But the thing that surprised me about it, when I started talking to the agents about the cost of renovation, I mean, you're talking a new roof, entirely to gut out the property and to refit it. And the cost seemed quite low to me, pretty reasonable. So that one agent for that house was talking about maybe 80 grand for a pretty decent renovation job. So it was 120,000 euro for a 4-bedroom house right in the town, with a little area outside underneath the grapevines where you can sit and drink your wine. I think I sent you a video of that one. I saw one for 22. That's one for 22,000. Would cost a lot less to renovate because it's a smaller house. So I think you probably need a new roof on that. But none of this stuff. I mean, I'm sitting in a restored farmhouse, and so like I've been through that renovation stuff. It doesn't daunt me that much. And I think what happens with a lot of these village homes is that when prospective buyers come to view them, they get kind of scared away by what looks like a lot of work. But I think if you just get the right person, and there are like builders around to do it, and you get them in, and you get an architect, you basically, it's not as scary as it might look at first if you pick the right property,
Yeah. And I think too, getting in at this point, we have the chance to buy pre-gentrification, the gringo pricing on absolutely everything. You can go in with a modest budget in your pocket, and it will be very well received by the local craftspeople and the workers. So there's still that big opportunity that not only can you buy super cheap, you can get all these things done reliably and really, really inexpensively. But, for me, there's a big kind of takeaway here that I see playing out time and time again in towns like this. And that's that there can be these really, really attractive kind of sticker prices, super low sticker prices, just like when I went to Ganji in Sicily and I looked at €1 houses. But by just spending a bit more, by stretching your budget, you can get something truly, truly special that's, in a somewhat higher budget level, but, still in terms of value for money is just far, far greater. So, these kind of 22,000 euro homes, they exist and they're functional, and they're all that. But if you stretch your budget to 120,000, you get so much more. You get so much more that will be so much nicer to spend time in. But most importantly, you'll get that edge for renting. You'll have this outside space, this view, this place for coffee in the mornings or vino in the evenings under the vines that will really set you apart when it comes to listing on Airbnb. Because, a lot of these homes, I don't think, For me anyway, if you're doing something like this with one eye to rental, you want it to be worth your while. You don't want to be competing for 50 euro a night rentals. Why not create something special that, as I mentioned to you on WhatsApp, will compete with Tuscan villas? If you want, in the summertime, you want to rent a Tuscan villa or a renovated home in the Tuscan hillside, you're going to pay through the roof, and there's going to be almost nothing available. There's no reason that these homes can't plug into the same market. They're the same 2-hour flight from Northern Europe plus 2 hours drive. You've got similar views in places, and the right property, I firmly believe, even though it's very much an overlooked area, can compete with other locations, not just in Portugal, but in other parts of Europe, because quite simply, those areas are completely maxed out, in particular in the peak summer season. So rather than paying 1.5 million for a villa in Tuscany and renting it out, why not pay 250 grand here and rent it to the same market?
There's an interesting kind of addition to that is the golden visa. So I know I don't think nobody I spoke to knew for sure what's going to happen next year with the golden visa, but they were all pretty confident that while the golden visa, you won't no longer be eligible for the golden visa investing in Lisbon or the Algarve or Porto or hot markets like that. This area, you will still be able to get a golden visa for whatever investment it is, be it the 280 grand, I think, yeah, or higher. So that's still shaking out. But to your point, I think I sent you this link, and you were interested in looking at that. That was 7 apartments. The asking price was 560, and I saw it listed elsewhere for 500,000. And that's what I kept coming across, how negotiable these prices were. Everywhere I went, the broker was like, the price is negotiable. And I would see different prices on the same listing in different real estate agencies. So I thought that was kind of curious. But that was 7 apartments. I checked the reviews, and I think they rent for about 100 to 150 euro a night. It seemed to be solidly booked. The reviews all seem to be good. And I know that that's something you've talked about before, this idea of buying kind of a plug and play.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of buying plug and play. And I also think this kind of one play that sets you for life is a really, really cool and exciting idea. So, in Lagos, you can spend 500 grand, buy a luxury condo, make it available for rental, and you'll do extremely well. Expect kind of 40 grand a year in rental income. But, to get that level of rental income, you won't get much use because it's going to be rented much of the time. And in Lagos, you're not creating a market. In Lagos, you're just buying the perfect product to plug into an established high demand market. Here, step back and let's get into the countryside and look at an opportunity like this, say 7 apartments, gorgeous pool area, big piece of land. I mean, my recollection was 27,000 square meters, which is 6.5 acres, near 7 acres. So you have this pristine piece of land, pool, gardens, really, really nicely done apartments. That's an up and running rental operation. So this is a thing that you could, up sticks, move into one of the units, rent the other 6, and make a pretty good income. You could pretty much live off it. And let's say you're buying with an 80% mortgage, your mortgage payments would be in the region of 1,400 euro per month. So even with that 80% mortgage, this is a place you could move into and that you could throw off enough cash every month to live off. So I think that's a really, really cool idea. But of course, that idea is very specific to the type of person who wants to live there and who is comfortable and excited about the possibility of meeting your renters. And again, you also need to be open that these renters might come knocking on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning if a sink is clogged, or if one of the other neighbors are noisy. So, you know, this is a cool idea and it's doable, but it's for the right person. Whereas Lagos is much more an arm's length type thing.
Yeah, and I mean that ultimately. So I stopped in Evora, which is a beautiful, small, walled medieval. Was older than that. I think it's a Roman city. But I had been there a couple of times, and it's a place in Portugal that I've always thought, you know, I could spend some time here. I could live here. But I stopped there on my way to Lagos, and I looked at some property. I kind of did your strolling strategy. I took the real estate app and I walked around and kind of checked out a few places. And then I went from there to Lagos, and it just, that's the emotion, the kind of like a roller coaster. Every you're figuring things out, you know, but it seems much more straightforward maybe than those village homes, you know. And then Lagos, it's all figured out for you. You've got like property managers. You can just, it's almost like a fire and forget.
Yeah. So Evora, I mean, I think what's really interesting about your reports from Evora is, you know, the advanced party is there already. The digital nomads, the remote working millennials, the more pioneering vacationers, the kind of the more savvy are there, and they're there in numbers. And I'm hearing whispers all over about it. And this is kind of coming on top of the fact that it's an established center of learning. It's easily accessible to Lisbon. It's easily accessible to the Algarve. It's like it's bubbling, and it's bubbling from, I guess, a modest base that was there already. But you know, we can still find value. I mean, you found some fabulous renovated homes, and again, some like real deep value, really kind of attractive, low sticker priced homes ripe for renovation.
Like I was there in 2015, and I was there 2 years ago again briefly, and this time I was really surprised at just how much of a change there had been. I hadn't seen construction there before in the way I was seeing it this time. There was a real busyness about the place walking around. And I was there, I checked my notes, I was there in August. So I was wondering, was it the time of year? But it's the same time of year as I was there before. And this time, like, there's e-scooters, you know, all over the place. They weren't there before for rental from tourist students. But interestingly, there was so many young people, and I thought to myself, well, college is out. You know, the university, the class semester, it's closed for the summer. So these people aren't the students from the university. And then I kind of was sitting in restaurants and overhearing it. These conversations all taking place in English. So there's a very international crowd there now, you know.
And so in terms of the vacationers, short-term rental market, what's your sense of that?
That I mean, looking around at hotels and rentals, I think it's everything seemed to be quite booked up. I didn't think it was saturated by any stretch. I thought that the right property in the right place you could do very well. That's what I was thinking, if you get it at the right price, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I was looking around the old town and on the outskirts of the old town. I found that one property which looked very interesting to me for €160,000. It had that an outdoor space, a little kind of courtyard, but you could walk straight. You know, you were less than a 10-minute walk from the central square and all the historic area. And then I tried to adopt one of your strategies and look for old and overlooked. and kind of so the city is surrounded by, you know, curtain wall, medieval curtain wall, and then just outside that is a road. You know, the road goes around the city, and then across that road you have older kind of apartment blocks and stuff built like more recently than obviously the historic quarter. But you're still only a 10-minute walk from the city center.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't there long enough to really dig on it. I know you're planning a trip there, but that's kind of what I had in my head, was maybe that would be the place to look for something that you get some deep value, but you, as a rental, you could still do pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. Because that play will really work when, you know, whenever becomes this kind of high traffic destination, when you've got your short-term rental advertised, it looks really attractive, and you're only a 10-minute walk to the core. You know, that's exactly what we found in places like Florence and Venice. You know, despite the bigger luxurious apartments being super high priced, you walk within that kind of 10-12 minute stroll, you're still very much in prime Airbnb territory, but you can buy for a fraction. So that really works as a location becomes high traffic. You know, if you go to a location that's lower traffic, like for example, where my home in the Silver Coast is, it's an area that gets far fewer tourists. It's much less developed, poles apart compared to the Algarve in terms of levels of traffic. But here, if you buy something that stand out, you can still do pretty well in terms of seasonal rentals anyway. And, you know, that's what I found with my own condo. It's a true beachfront condo. So it's very, very rare, almost unheard of in Portugal. So even though this location is a very low traffic area for rental, because I've got a standout property that's true beachfront, it's just been booked solid all summer. I mean, there's literally been, I've had a job to do over the course of the summer, and that's to get some curtains in. And there was only one day in the entire summer when the apartment was available for people to go in and do it. So again, that's a different play to the Algarve on multiple fronts. I mean, the Algarve, you've potentially a much bigger season. You can have your property needs to be best in class and of a certain standard, but it doesn't need to be truly exceptional to attract that level of rental. But it's just interesting because everywhere you go, each market will call for a different strategy to maximize that kind of rental element that you're looking for.
Yeah. Did I see you throwing around a figure for income from your Silver Coast property for this season so far?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I just totted up in my bank account yesterday, and in the 2 months since it's become open for rental, I've been sent £8,000, and my mortgage is €607 per month. So, and bear in mind, this was not bought as an investment. So this was bought as my home, as one of my bases. I bought here because the weather suits me, the access to golf suits me, and the quiet suits me. So all the reasons, or many of the reasons, that make the Algarve a great investment opportunity. I'm an oddball. I don't want it. I don't want the heat. I don't want the crowds. I don't want any of that stuff. I want wild isolation in a comfortable beachfront apartment near golf. So it's been a very pleasant surprise that even in just the couple of months that I've been here in Ireland, you know, I've had 8 or 9 or no 10 months of more. Geez, I've nearly had a year's mortgage paid for. So, and then your holding costs in addition to that are really, really small. You know, taxes are almost nothing. My HOA costs where I am are very high for Portugal. They're about $200 per month, the equivalent of about $200 per month, which is extremely high for Portugal. But I'm in a building where we've got an elevator for just 7 units. So it's high for Portugal, but relative to what you've got elsewhere, it would be extremely low. So, I mean, the other thing about Portugal is that you do not need to live in a gated community whatsoever. So there is no need to have HOA fees. And in fact, a lot of the gated communities in Portugal, they're actually not gated at all. So in Praia del Rei, where I am, even though it's a community, there's no gates. There's resort security, which, you know, drive around. It's extremely safe. The trash collection is still done every day by the municipality. Incredibly great service, incredibly efficient. Like, I get things like an electricity bill for like 17 euro. You know, the cost of everything is just, again, I'm looking at my bills, or I'm looking at my bank account and saying, what the hell was that? And then I dig, and it's a month's electricity. And so I've been tickled pink with this experience, because I told Rita members that it was a terrible rental, and now I'm questioning all that on two fronts, because also my next door neighbor, the condo next to me, when I was there in the spring period, again during lockdown, travel limitations, all that jazz, they were just booked solid. So, you know, this is a big eye opener that there is a market for the right place. And
you have bought on the Algarve, right?
I mean, I bought on the Algarve for pure investment. So I bought in the resort of Val de Lobo. You know, again, this was just one of these chance experiences. And this is what I always say to you, that if you put yourself in the right place with the right people at the right time, or at any time, opportunities just come to you. That's why, you know, as a group, we're so committed to investing in boots on the ground research. But, you know, I was out having lunch with a contact. We bumped into a group of bank people. We're shooting the breeze. Next thing, one of them says, I've just got my hands, one of the bank people, on a bunch of bank repossessions in Val de Lobo. And they're like having their wine, and they're having their 3-hour lunch, and no one's interested in getting up off their seat. So we go and figure out how to get the keys from the bank, and we figure out how to find where the building is. And, you know, we're going through the big bag of keys and what goes in here. And we're trying to identify what units have been foreclosed by the fact that gardens are overgrown and they're poorly maintained. So finally we get into them, and we're going, you know, fine, it's priced fairly. Fine, it's priced fairly, you know, it's okay deal. And then we open the door of one, and it's like, we're looking at the spreadsheet, and we're like, holy, they got the pricing wrong on this one. So we're looking at this like 2 apartment over 2 levels with a roof terrace, and a big spacious apartment with a private elevator. The whole thing feels like a house. It's got about 3 or 4 different terraces in Val de Lobo, which is a super high-end community, just homes, many homes in the 5 to 15 million euro bracket, many condos in the 800 to 1.5 million bracket, and they're asking 450 grand. Just something's gone sideways somewhere in the banking bureaucracy. And we offered, so myself and my buddy and my contact, you know, we both want this one. So like, what do? We say, we'll go in on it. We'll go in on it together. And the trick with some of these bank repossessions is that the bank will give you 100% finance. So you're buying with no money down. And so we offered 350 grand. We settled on 410 grand. Now, the place was, we couldn't even open it up until we had closed, because the electricity had been cut off. So we couldn't open the shutters. Part of one of the ceilings had come in. There were a bunch of these kind of cosmetic issues, but I felt comfortable because basically we were buying for 410. At the time, there was another condo almost next door listed for 650 grand. Subsequent to that, another one of these condos, exact same type, came on the market at 830 grand. So we've got a big spread of built-in value, built-in gains for surprises. But I also felt confident that these surprises were not likely to be that significant, because this was an extremely well-built building that had been built 10 years ago and that had never been lived in. So while some of the cabinetry was pulled out, I mean, I'm sure the cabinetry vendor wasn't paid and at some point came and pulled stuff out. These are the types of things that happen when in bankruptcy scenarios. But it's been just a really, really exciting experience. So we bought with no money down. We had to pay our closing costs, and we had to do these kind of minor cosmetic renovations. And now today we have tenants in there. We're renting it short term. It's just in the past couple of weeks, we've got our rental license. It's available for short term, and we're listing it at 3,500 euros per week at the moment. So it rents for 3,500 euros per week. We've been doing some discounting because we're just trying to get a bit of momentum. So we've been doing some discounting of kind of 10% to 30%, depending on the length of stay. But bottom line, again, with a 1,400 euro per month mortgage and a 3,500 euro per week rent, you've got a lot of scope too. So this is, no money down. We'd cover our closing costs, but we're going to be into it all told probably for about 460 grand. An identical apartment list for 830, plus we've got all this positive cash flow from the get-go. So this is one of these deals that, the Algarve is a high traffic, mature market, but if you have a play, if you have an angle, there's still big opportunity for really, really profitable investment. The other angle that RETA members have been successful in, that contacts have been successful in, is buying homes that were built in the run-up to the last crisis, that were under construction, are built 2007, 2008. The owner goes bankrupt. The house goes into this kind of bureaucratic quagmire. It sits on a bank's books for years and years, and you can pounce and you can buy them for a fraction of what they're potentially worth with a bit of TLC. So there is this overlooked angle, in many little pockets and plays in the Algarve. And that's because, it's a really high traffic market. It's extremely accessible and desirable to Northern Europeans. But the folks who come down here to pay 800 grand for a condo, or 2 million euros for a villa, or anything in between, the typical profile is a busy person. They're busy professionals or executives. They've got busy work lives. They've got busy family lives. They have their areas of expertise. They stick to it. They don't have the time or the interest in figuring out a renovation. So that's where, where people like us with some capital, with some kind of with time and capital, can come in and do extremely well.
I had a question for you actually about Portugal in general. Like, in the research that I was doing and when I was there, it felt like the pandemic was kind of just an interruption in the world's discovery of Portugal. Portugal was kind of I know you've been visiting Portugal since 2002, so it's not a hidden part of the world to you at all. But tourism was on a tear before the pandemic. I'm just curious as to where you see things going, kind of short, medium, long term for Portugal.
Yeah. So, I mean, my Portugal experience, I'd say up to probably 2013 was golf trips to resorts. So pretty much every year with a group of buddies, we'd go on a golf trip to Portugal and we'd stay in a golf resort and a bus would pick us up and bring us around and we'd go for dinner in a marina or, could have been Florida, could have been California, could have been anywhere. Very much that type of experience. And, in the past decade, so let's call it the Northern European market, which is the kind of the core market for Portugal. Portugal has been explored and is being viewed in a very, very different way. It's being viewed in a much more holistic, full country way. You hear people talking about doing cruises on the Douro. You hear people, you hear whispers of the Alentejo. We hear, Porto and Lisbon are mainstream weekend destinations. So to the core European market, it has evolved and opened up from a kind of beach, sun, golf, vacation destination into a much broader experience. And that is continuing, and that's continuing unabated. And now we've got remote working coming on top of that. So that's going to add more fuel. So the trajectory within the European market is extremely strong. The demographic forces driving that are extremely strong because now we've pressure on two fronts. We've got all these retirees from Scandinavia, from Germany, from Britain. They're all just screaming out for sunshine and sea and golf in the winter. And now we've got pressure from the people who are from their 20s up to our age. And many of these people have young families. They're looking for remote working situations. And all this is coming to Portugal in a situation where there's very limited inventory, because Portugal is really tight on permits, really tight on development, much more so than Spain. So we've got this surging demand and scarcity of inventory. So that all bodes extremely strongly for Portugal. And then on top of it, you've got the golden visa, which is now a thing for British people post-Brexit. We have it's very attractive for French pensioners to move to Portugal. They can pay almost no tax versus paying 60% tax. It's attractive for people like me who've been able to reduce my applicable tax rates to a range of between 0 and 20% by moving there. So all powerful stuff. And then you add into this what's happening in terms of the North American market, that Portugal is now in vogue. It's this chic place for Californians. It's the next California. And, those parallels are striking with the surf and the nature. There's a powerful sense that many parts of Portugal's Atlantic coast mirror different parts of California. But you pay 70 cents for your coffee in Portugal. Your property taxes are nothing. So very, very compelling drivers for tourism, for living. And then you've got this tech, this kind of tech ecosystem. And, Berlin was the big place for our outside of London and outside of the major capitals. Berlin was this hub of kind of tech vibrancy and digital nomads. And they were attracted 10, 15 years ago by low-cost real estate and the funky vibe. Now, that kind of ecosystem is navigating towards Portugal. So that whole that whole swarm, let's call it, because in Portugal, they've got the weather, they've got the low taxes, you can surf, you've got, major international airport. So it's all there is this kind of convergence of things happening in Portugal, and all of it coming on top of a really, really educated, people and workforce. I mean, I'm always struck by just how capable and interested, and I'd say in often cases underutilized, their human resources is there. So I feel extremely positive about Portugal's prospects. I feel it mirrors Ireland in a lot of ways, the kind of the transition from the Ireland that we grew up in, where, people were generally very well educated, pretty ambitious, but all that was exported. And now the tide is turning in Portugal, and I feel very positive and optimistic that it's going to keep and grow its status as a place to live, vacation, and to do business. Very appealing for the new mobile world.
I know you're going back there soon, right? To do some to spend some time and do some scouting.
Exactly, 2nd of September, which it's days away now. If you could see here that the boxes are packed. I fly here from Cork to Faro. Then I'm going to spend a bit of time on the Algarve. I'm going to spend time in Lagos, and I'm going to spend some time to the west of Lagos, because this is the big thing now we've got our eye on. When this best-in-class inventory in Lagos runs out, where is next? Is it west or is it back to the east? So I'm going to be trying to hone in on where the next place in the Algarve is. And then I'm going to meander back up to the Silver Coast, do your trip in reverse, and see if I can outbid you on one of those.
Yeah, we're sending the pro now. You've got to find me the property that I can buy.
Well, I'll tell you in advance what my advice is. Go big. And in the case of the Alentejo, that we're only talking about a budget of 250 grand. Buy a home where you have space for pool, where you have olive groves, where you have enough bedrooms or outside units in the garden that can accommodate a family group, cater for families or groups of friends, cater for something that will compete directly with the villa market in other places. Because, some people would say, Ronan, that's crazy. If I want Tuscany, I'll go to Tuscany. If I want the Algarve, I'll go to the Algarve. But you look for a villa in the Algarve today with pool that can accommodate five people. Maybe you'll find one for 5 or 6 grand a week, but honestly, I don't think you'll find one for anything like that. It's maxed out, and with the right marketing, you can compete with that market.
And actually, it's interesting you say that. I met IL readers who'd bought in Lagos, and they had spent 9 weeks looking for property in Italy. And when it came time, they just went for Portugal, because buying in Italy versus buying in Portugal, just Portugal made more sense to them.
And I mean, then just in practical terms, I mean, Italy is heavy going. I mean, Portugal, banking, legals, all of that stuff is, in my experience, has been really smooth. And I feel just Italy is just more difficult, more bureaucratic, less of a hunger to facilitate us. And that Portugal is easier on multiple fronts.
Yeah. Well, I know I'll have my full report. I promise. I'll have it done, and we get it out tomorrow.
I do note that the expense report came in before the actual report.
I gotta get paid.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that report, and I'm looking forward to also sharing our report from the Algarve.
Yeah, cool. All right, good stuff.
Thanks,
Good
Owen.
luck.
Take care.
Bye.